Good morning. My name is Dave Wellful, and I'm here to present the Santa Ana River Watershed Bacteria Monitoring Program that was required by a basic plan amendment for by the Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board. And just to remind everybody, this is for inland surface waters. All right. So this is our region, Region 8, Santa Ana Basin. And so this monitoring plan is for all inland surface waters in Orange County, Riverside, and San Bernardino County that's in our region. And some of the key waters that we have monitored are Lake Elsinore, Canyon Lake, Lake Paris, Big Bear Lake, the Middle Santa Ana River, and some mountain streams, Lateral Creek and Mill Creek. So even though we're a semi-arid area, we have water in that, and it's very popular. This is a picture from the Press Enterprise. This is in the Middle Santa Ana River, what we call Reach 3, Headley Park. There's large stretches of the river. This is obviously summertime, but it's treated effluent water. The water looks clear, It's kind of sandy. It's a natural area, so people flock there. In the Inland Empire, as you know, it can get very hot. So popular. But we have other areas too that are very popular for recreation, water contact recreation. So because of the recreation that we have inland, and mainly because of a 2012 amendment for rec standards, basic plan amendment that we did, we developed a guidance for the monitoring plan. So the first part of it is to implement the monitoring and surveillance requirements of the 2012 rec standards, basic plan amendment. So we have specific requirements in that. And then the second part of this is to conduct sampling to support the Middle Santa Ana River bacteria TMDL. And so where those people were swimming, the rec standard bacterial objectives are not met. So we have a TMDL there since 2007. Okay, so, and then the last part is to support any additional bacterial indicator monitoring to support regional activities. So I'll just say, with our rec standards amendment, it was finally approved by EPA in 2015, and we adopted EPA's criteria at that time for E. coli, for fresh waters. And during that, as part of that amendment, we de-designated the Rec 1 use from 4 waters through the UAA process, and I'll talk about that more in a little bit. So, as a requirement of that amendment, the 3 goals of it are to provide the data needed to determine if water quality in our most popular water contact rec areas meets their bacterial objectives. So, and then also, like I mentioned, to facilitate the Middle Santa Ana River TMDL. And so, most importantly, we applied a risk-based implementation strategy for the best allocation of public resources, because we all know the public agencies don't, there's all sorts of waters that do not meet the rec standards. And so we wanted them to focus their sampling and monitoring on the waters where people are in the water. And so this program is funded by the 3 county stormwater agencies, and we required that it was compatible with SWAMP monitoring program. And the consulting firm CDM Smith has been doing this for the last few years. So the key thing is we had very robust sampling of areas where people are in the water and we know where they are, and then the areas where they're not, less sampling requirements. So the regional monitoring program divides the waters into 4 priorities. The first priority is to determine if the most popular water contact rec areas are safe, meaning that they meet the bacterial standards. People are safe, less likely to get sick. The second is the TMDL adopted water, which is our one TMDL we have. And the third priority is to sample our 303 delisted waters, compared waters for bacteria that do not have a TMDL. And the fourth priority is to implement anti-dank targets that we develop for our waters that do not have REC 1. Whoops. Yep, sorry. Okay. So just go. Okay. So for the priority 1 waters, we have these listed in our basin plan as the REC 1 Tier A waters. These are the waters that we know, generally all in the Inland Empire, where people go in the water for water contact recreation. Big Bear Lake, Lake Paris, Canyon Lake, Lake Elsinore, Santa Ana River, Beach 3, that's the middle Santa Ana River. And then some mountain creeks, Lytle Creek, where there's a highway right by it. People stop off and they build little dams and they sit in the water. And Mill Creek is another mountain stream up by Forest Falls. So those areas are the most common areas where people are in the water. In the middle, like I mentioned, the middle Santa Ana River. So the most rigorous sampling is required for this. And so we require, the program requires 20 weeks of dry weather sampling between May 1st and September 30th, and then 1 6-week cool season sampling. Again, for E. coli, and the program has been modified to implement the new statewide bacteria criteria. So that's the 6 weeks period to get a geomean, a running geomean, 5 samples, and so on and so forth. So the priority 2, as I mentioned, is to implement the Middle Santa Ana River TMDL. And this TMDL was adopted in 2007. And so we have these sampling areas on the same rigorous monitoring, the same as 20-week dry weather sampling, and then 1 5-week cool season sampling. And so those 2 spots with the green around them are also priority 1 spots. So basically the Santa Ana River, that water has treated effluent in it, it's perennial, and that's a very common swimming area, or not swimming, but water recreation areas. Also, there's a large amount of homeless people in there, so we're working to get that water quality better. And then these are tributaries. So these are sampled on that rigorous schedule there. So priority 3, as I mentioned, is for our 303 delisted waters or impaired waters for bacteria where no TMDL has been yet developed. So we have 23 water bodies currently listed on the 303 D list for bacteria with no adopted TMDL. And this is from the 2014-2016 integrated report. And this gives a list of some of them. Newport Coast streams, there's like Buck Gully, Los Troncos, and Morning Canyon. These are perennial streams that flow to the ocean. Borrego is in Lake Forest, Pierce Canyon Marsh, San Diego Creek, Santa Ana River Reach 4, which is the substream of the middle Santa Ana River, and Golden Star. But I said we have 23. So the purpose is to collect data to support regulatory decisions, to delist or to develop a TMDL. And so there in this, we require a minimum of 5 samples over 6 weeks in the warm weather and at varying times throughout the year. And so, for example, the plan is to work and to delist the Santa Ana River Reach 4. So they're going to do that. They're going to monitor that more in 26 weeks to see if they can be able to delist that. So priority 4, okay. Okay, so the REC 1 use has been de-designated as part of our 2012 Basin Plan Amendment as a result of our approved UAA, Use Capability Analysis. This was difficult. We had to demonstrate to US EPA that these waters do not have an existing REC use, that for different reasons, that people can't get into them. So basically what these are concrete lined channels, locked off, posted, no one allowed, low flow, or when there is flow, dangerous flows. So we had to demonstrate that to UCPA, Hills of Bay commented on those. And so that was a process. And so the whole thing was to, where people aren't in the water, why sample it so much? So sample it where the people are in the water. So that's our goal. And so it's these are all concrete line channels. Santa Ana Delhi channel flows into Upper Newport Bay. Greenville Banning channel flows into Santa Ana River by the ocean. Temescal Creek, Reach 1A and 1B are in the city of Corona, and before it flows into Colorado Basin. Cucamonga Creek, Reach 1. So all concrete line channels. And so since we de-designated Rec 1, there's no water quality objective. And we used to have a Rec 2 objective, and I think half the regions have one or had one. So we removed that too, because we felt there's no scientific basis for a Rec 2 water quality objective. So to show that these waters are not degraded, and to meet our anti-DEG requirements, we adopted EPA's methods and we developed anti-DEG targets. We took all the data that we could find on these waters, bacteria data, put it in a log distribution, chose the 75th percentile number, and that's the targets for these waters. These waters are sampled about once a year in the warm season, and for the most part, they have not exceeded that anti-DEG target. But if they do, then further sampling is required and an investigation is required. And so I just condensed this. This is from a table from our last monitoring report that CDM Smith did for the third quarter of 2019 dry weather sampling. And they showed all 12 weeks, and I just condensed it so it would fit on here. So that P1s, those are all our high priority waters, and it's good news. Those are the highest geomeans. So, you know, not well below the 100 geomean standard. So that's good news, I would say. For Lake Elsinore, because of the high TDS levels, the new bacterial provisions require us to do E. coli, enterococcus, which they did. And it met all the geomeans there, except one time it didn't. So that's something we need to look into. So for Lake Elsinore, because of the TDS levels, it needs to be sampled for enterococcus. Okay, so this is our priority 2. This is for the Middle Santa Ana River. And Santa Ana River MWD crossing. MWD has a bridge where a water pipe goes across. Very popular place for recreation. So as you see, it's above standards there. And the Santa Ana River at Pedley, that's a public access area. Also problems there. And the tributaries, Prado Lake is down lower, but you know, these tributaries to the Santa Ana River have high levels. So our TMDL task force uses this data and, you know, to implement the TMDL. And that's it. Any questions?
I'm sure we have questions, Dave. For those of you online, if you have a question for Dave, you can unmute, ask your question. I have been looking in the chat box, which I can't seem to find. So please, if you have a question, unmute and ask Dave.
Yeah, Grant.
Dave, if I can ask a question, since you know, an important part of this is making information accessible, where would one go to find data and information related to this monitoring program?
That's a good question. So we were putting it all on our web page, but now that it's not ADA compliant, the last few monitoring reports haven't been there. But so, yeah, so it was all on our web page, all the different quarterly monitoring reports, but some of the last few haven't. So we need to figure out a good place to put those so the public can see it.
Is the data being uploaded into CDN?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's in CDN.
Right.
It's in CDN. We require that. So the consultants put it in the CDN. So, but we need to maybe work with the consultants to get it ADA compliant so we can keep it posted on our webpage.
How frequently had it been put on your website?
It's there up to 2018.
So how, when they were monitoring and putting it on, how frequently?
Okay, so the quarterly reports.
Quarterly
Since
reports.
2016, when we approved the monitoring plan, we've had quarterly reports and then yearly reports. And then they describe, there's a QAA, they describe the sampling methods, where they sample, same spots. They're supposed to be right downstream of where people are, or right upstream, whatever. And a whole procedure that's followed. Now, we don't sample for halves, and so some of those places have problems with that. So maybe we can modify this, working with the stakeholders.
For the sites that have the higher numbers, are there any signs posted or effort to educate the public?
For the middle, you know, Heather, for the middle Santa Ana River?
I know, because that's part of the TNVL, right?
That's part of the TNVL. Yes, okay, there are. I mean, listen, water is hazardous, but people walking right by it. And so, because the water's crystal clear, you know, looks good, tertiary treated, disinfected, but then it picks up bacteria. So, there are postings. I'll have to find out how much you know, all the postings that are there. But yes, sir.
I have a question about using Enterococcus for the Lake Elsinore because of the TDS. I think when the bacteria provision was adopted, we actually provided some comment about how the Enterococcus, instead of E. coli, are used for inland water assessment, because you know, there's I think it's likely that when this one was discussed, the coastal water was you know, it's mostly for the coastal water or when the fresh water meets the salt water. I think, you know, using Enterococcus has its you know, reason, but for inland water, I don't know whether, you know, this is appropriate, because I think one of the comment we provided was to have a work group to look into this issue. I don't know where we are in terms of that effort.
So, right, it's part of it. I mean, you guys have the same problem in the Central Valley, right? High TDS lakes.
We haven't identified any yet, so we haven't been using Enterococcus, but I thought when the state board adopted the objective that there was some language in there to kind of do some more work.
Yeah, it was, you know, at the hearing, we provided comment, and I think the board directed the staff to look into this issue. So it's just, I'm asking more on the follow-up. One of the things about Enterococcus for the inland water is that the regrowth potential is much higher than E. coli.
Yes, so for Lake Elsinore, there was one exceedance of the 12-week geomean, rolling geomean with the Entero, but nothing for the E. coli, no exceedances. Well, as far as I know, it's a requirement of the new bacteria provisions. If 95% of the time the TDS is above 1,000, you have to use it.
So I think it is like a research need, or like a monitoring need to kind of collect more data to be able to compare, because I don't know a lot of examples where people are monitoring Entero in inland waters.
Yeah, I can speak to that because we do it. The reason, so we collect E. coli and Enterococcus for a few different reasons. We think that the claim isn't well substantiated in primary literature that Enterococcus has a higher regrowth potential in fresh water. If you look at the 2012 EPA, you know, water quality recommendations, they give the choice between E. coli and Enterococcus. So it's not like they're recommending E. coli over Entero. They're just, you know, saying either or. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We would also like to look into it more too, and we have been calling for more research to be done on it as well.
Yeah, so one of the, I can provide you with some information because, SCORP actually did a, reference study for us in the San Diego region. So for the, same waterways, the reference creek, the, Anacoccus is much higher than E. coli. So the other aspect is, for Orange County, I think for, some inland creek as well, there are a lot of, freshwater creeks. We roughly calculated 60%. In dry weather, they are above this 1, PPT level.
So the Newport Coast waters have high TDS too. So they should be sampled for Quintero if you follow the state board. But we'll check into that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Maybe another discussion topic for a future meeting, and maybe, we could get some of the staff from state board that worked on those objectives, and they could kind of, talk about the reasoning for that, and then, yeah, if you guys know of other data sources or have suggestions.